5 of the toughest cannibals in history. Alexi Suckleton, the watchman of the Horticultural Association, and his roommate lured naive women into their house of nature, raped them, and then ate them. They made people kebabs and dumplings. They fed their dog and sold it to summer residents under the guise of pickled pork for barbecue. They say that people, having tasted his delicacies, could not even stand the smell of meat for a long time. It was possible to catch the criminals thanks to their sense of impunity. Suckleton ate people for 2 years, and he got away with everything. But one day a local alcoholic said that he came to visit Suckleton and asked for a bottle where his wife was. And he, laughing, pointed to the barrel. "Yes, over there, look." A woman's head with loose hair floated in the bloody water. Later, the task force discovered a whole arsenal of devices to satisfy the bloodthirsty whims of the monster. A nail was hammered into the door, on which the cannibal killed hanged people. Cutting boards and knives of various sizes lay on the shelves. Suckleton was found guilty of murdering at least 7 girls and women and shot dead in 1987. His partner was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Alexander Pierce. In 1819, an Irishman was sentenced to 7 years in exile for stealing several pairs of shoes. Pierce began serving his sentence in Tasmania, but he wasn't going to serve that long. On September 20, 1822, Pierce and 7 other prisoners managed to escape. They plunge into the dense, impenetrable forests of Tasmania, but after 8 days the feeling of hunger becomes so strong that the fugitives take turns killing the weaker ones. 2 survived, the guide Greenhill and Pierce himself. For 8 days the men did not sleep, being afraid of each other. As a result, Greenhill fell asleep, and Pierce immediately killed him with an axe. Having reached the inhabited lands, the ogre lived in the wild for only a few months. The judges did not believe Pierce's story, considering that in this way he protects his sheltered comrades. In November 1823, the Irishman escaped again, this time with a young companion who persuaded him to take him with him. When Pierce was caught a few days later, human flesh was found in his pockets, although there was enough other food. The cannibal said that he had killed this comrade by dismembering his body. For his crimes, the maniac was sentenced to death by hanging. His last words were that human meat is much tastier than fish or pork. Death sentence. Armin Meiwes. At the end of January 2004, a German court sentenced the famous cannibal Armin Meiwes. A 42-year-old programmer from Rothenburg, with his consent, killed and ate Siemens engineer Bernd Jürgen Brandes. The man met his victim by posting online that he was looking for a chubby victim for a cannibal dinner. First, Meiwes had sex with Brandeis, then mocked him for several hours by amputating his genitals, which he then fried with spices and ate with other meat. Cannibal insisted that everything that happened was coordinated with Brandeis and was done in accordance with his wishes. The prosecution demanded a life sentence for the cannibal. The killer's lawyer insisted that the crime was committed at the request of the victim and therefore should be considered as assisted suicide. The court decided to reject the arguments of the defense, but at the same time spare the cannibal and not sentence him to death in prison, assigning him only 8.5 years of imprisonment as punishment for involuntary murder. Jeffrey Dahmer. The first murder occurred in 1978 when the maniac was only 18 years old. Over time, Dahmer developed a whole tactic of finding victims. As a rule, these were representatives of sexual minorities to whom the guy offered to continue the relationship outside the bar. Dahmer wanted his victims to become obedient zombies by drilling holes in their heads with a drill and acid. Some of the unfortunate ones even lived 2 days after that. The maniac practiced necrophilia and ate the corpses of his victims. In 1988, his next victim, a 13-year-old Lao boy, escaped from Dahmer. The police arrested the maniac, but the court sentenced him to only 1 year of hard labor. Dahmer continued to kill people during the investigation. In the summer of 1991, he began killing once a week. As a result, her next lover managed to escape and the police searched the maniac's apartment. 3 heads, a heart and guts were found in the cannibal's refrigerator. In the toilet, Dahmer held the pot with his hands and penis, body parts were everywhere. In total, the remains of 11 people were found in the apartment. The hearing of the case became very loud. The maniac was held behind bulletproof glass, shepherds were on duty, metal detectors were installed in the courtroom. Horror overcame the cannibal already in prison. In 1994, other prisoners killed him with a metal pipe. The maniac's body lay in the refrigerator for about a year, after which it was cremated. Andrei Chikatilo. Chikatilo was considered an exemplary husband, had 2 children, was a member of the CPSU. However, the account of the most famous Russian maniac, sadist, ripper, and cannibal has only 53 proven murders. Usually the maniac chose those who seemed to him offended by fate and unhappy. They were alcoholic women, just mentally retarded. At the same time, the excuse was quite simple: to share a drink. Chikatilo lured children into the forest with computers, video recorders, puppies and rare brands. After killing his victim, the maniac mutilated the body. Cut or bit the tongue, genitals, nipples, nose, fingers. The cannibal opened the abdominal cavity, gnawed and ate the internal organs. The worst part is that many of the victims survived. Almost all of the victims had their eyes gouged out. The maniac himself said that he was superstitiously afraid of the remnants of his image on their retinas. The maniac took the severed body parts with him and then ate them. Chikatilo rarely had direct sexual contact with his victims because he was helpless. His sexual satisfaction was achieved by murder. They caught a maniac for a long time. Chikatilo himself even helped the police as a vigilante. However, in the end, the killer was caught and tried to pass himself off as a madman at the trial. In 1994, the maniac was executed.